This video is going to give you an introduction to how to make some basic charts using ggplot2, which is the charting package that comes with Tidyverse. It is widely considered to be better than the basic charting capabilities of Basic are. I have to admit that I found ggplot to be the hardest piece of Tidyverse to figure out. It is so powerful and has so many options that at times it can be overwhelming, and at times when I go looking for help on the internet, I find so many fancy things that people are doing that mucks up the details and makes it hard for me to see the basics. So it's taken me a while to figure out even some of the basics, and I'm still not 100% sure I know all of it, but I'll show you what I do know, and it's been successful for me to be able to build some basic charts to share with my colleagues, and even push out, make an R Markdown page that I push out as an HTML page then to share with my colleagues, and they love seeing the colorful charts. So we're going to work with some data, a couple different sets of data. This first one, we'll start with some county population data. I have some data that shows the county population of every county in Minnesota, which is 87. It's a lot. But I'm going to make a smaller data set that just has the 7-county metro area. You'll see that we just have two columns, the geography and the population estimate from 2016, and very simple, that can make things a little easier for us to follow along. So the basic syntax to get a plot going is that you call ggplot, and then the arguments here within inside the parentheses, there's two main ones you need. What data you're using, so the name of the data frame, and then this is referred to as the aesthetics. What's going to be the x-axis and what's going to be the y-axis. Generally, y is going to be a value of some sort. X tends to be a year or a thing or a place or something like that. And then at the end of each line of code, you put a plus sign. And this is kind of like the pipe in Tidyverse, but it operates kind of the same way, but it's a plus sign. So you just have to remember that. And then in the second line, you tell it what kind of chart do you want. Do you want a bar chart, a line chart, a scatter plot, things like that. And there's a different piece of code here depending on the kind of chart you want. Geobar, of course, is the most basic. And then you need to feed it this stat equals identity. And this is one of the things that is hard for me to wrap my brain around, but I think basically what it's doing is referring back to the aesthetics in the first line and saying that's what you should be using for making the bars. So if I run this, I'm going to get a really basic chart. No fancy colors, no nothing, no, you know, it's put in some labels. This is the bare bones of a chart, and it's not horrible, to be honest, but it's not pretty either. So let's work on making some improvements. So if we take that same code we just ran, which is right there, and we add chord flip, do a plus sign with chord flip, we can actually flip it around to a horizontal bar chart, which is probably a better option considering we have these names of the counties, which in some cases are kind of long, like Washington. All right, so now one of the other things I'd like to do is I'd like to put these in order by the size of the county. Right now it's going in alphabetical order by the name of the county, but it's actually, because we flipped it, it actually has the A's on the bottom, and that's just because of the chord flip thing. So we can reorder this, and we can tell it that we can just change this aesthetic section to say reorder according to that population estimate. And so it's saying what this is doing is saying put the x axis in order, put the geography in order based on population estimate. And the default here would be smallest to largest, but because we have it flipped around, you'll see it's going to go the other way. And then we still have the y equals pop. And then I've also added some colors here. And in here, ggplot has some pre-baked colors that you can just put in with words, but you don't have much control over exactly what those colors are. So let me show you what this is going to do. So this color equals black gives us the outline, and the fill equals yellow gives us the fill of the bars. Not exactly pretty, but it allows you to see how this works. And now it's reordered, technically smallest to largest, but because it's flipped, it's going the other way. I like to use Reorder 2 to find some more specific colors that I might like better, and you'll see that I've put hex codes in here now, and these are actually the same hex codes, so now I no longer really have an outline, it's just the fill, and it looks more seamless than the two colors. So the other thing we can do is deal with what these axis labels look like on both sides. Right now they're just the defaults. So ggplot has, if you look at this scale continuous page, you can see a lot more detail about how you can deal with this. I'm also going to load a package called scales that a lot helps with some of this. And in this case, we're going to use scales to make the population labels have commas in them, so the 1,000 separators. And we're going to put a name on each axis. Let's run this. So now we have, it says county over here, it says population at the bottom, and our numbers have commas in them. We can also tell it how you can there's ways you can tell it to where to break and how many labels to put down here. Right now we're just letting it do the default, but it is possible to tell it go up to 1.5 million and break every 500,000 or whatever it is you want. Okay, so this is looking a lot better, but there's still some improvements we can make to it. We can add some titles. So you'll see that all of this anyways is the same, but then I've added a couple of things on this scale X discrete. First of all, I've told it to get rid of the label county. We don't need it to say county over here necessarily, so we can say name equals null. And then I've recoded the labels basically to proper case instead of uppercase. Of course, you could do that in the underlying data using like a case when and a mutate code. The only trick here is, of course, this would get hard if you have a lot of labels, and this one is kind of a lot, but you also have to remember to put it in the correct order, and that would be because it's flipped, it's going backwards from the bottom to the top. You want to make sure you get those labels in the right order. And then you can add this labels, and you can give it a title, subtitle, caption, or just one of these or a couple of them. You don't have to use all of them, just use whichever ones you want. And now we've got title, subtitle, and a caption down here in the lower right. We can also add some data labels, so the numbers, the actual population. And we can do that with the geom text command. So you have to again tell it to refer back to the aesthetics up here, and then you have to tell it where to get the label, and you have to be specific and say go to this data frame in this column, and I'm using the scales package again to translate that to with commas, so comma, open parens, close parens, and then this hjust equals indicates the positioning on the bar, and the size indicates how big those numbers are going to be. So you can see I've chosen 3. We could change it and make it 2. It'll make it way too small. And then the hjust, you'd use either hjust or vjust if you need to move it on or off the bars. In this case, I can't really move it off the bar because Hennepin goes so far over. But if you muck around with the number on hjust, you'll see it moves it around, and you can even do like a negative number. And you can do decimal points, things like that. So if I do negative 0.05, negative 0.5, too much. I had it pretty much right, h just equals 1. So if you're doing a column chart, then you'd probably use v just, but either h just or v just is going to move that around for you and kind of nudge it around to where you need. I also like to use a package called ggthemes that allows you to even pretty up your charts even more. These are pre-baked themes that set the font and the background and some other styling kind of things. So I've added on a line here that's going to turn this into the high charts theme, which is one of the options for ggthemes. And now you can see we've got some reference lines on there. And it's really a clean kind of look on this one. I'll show you here. 538 has a theme in ggthemes. This one has a more colored background and it has more reference lines in here. So it depends on what you like, and it's worth going and checking out the ggthemes. ggplot has some themes baked into it that you can also add in. So look up that on the ggplot webpage.